Hey guys, Pretzelman 945 here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about an anime that I just finished a few minutes ago, and that is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Um, this is one of many slice of life shows that has been on my watch list for a long time. Uh, and you know, the reason why I'm only just getting around to is because I have a lot of shows to watch and um but basically the core of what this video is going to be about as I'm talking about this show is why slice of life shows are just a goated anime genre. Um I um I've watched plenty of slice of life shows that don't have like a wacky twist to them. But if they do have a wacky twist to them, which in the case of this show, it's dragons. I love dragons. I think dragons are cool in fantasy and stuff like that. Um, Running that to a slice of life show, it just makes it all the more fun. The whole like lore of the dragons is and there being like three factions between them, and the fact that all the characters that are dragons that end up coming to the human world have like their own pasts and stuff like that is really interesting. And um I really appreciate how built out that feels when it very easily could have been explained away by just the fact, oh, there's dragons here, and it probably still would have made for a good show. But like the fact that there was really that effort to make interesting lore and world building about like the sort of dragon cultures and how they differ from humans is very interesting. And the way that that translates to the dynamic between a lot of the pairs of characters is really interesting, like between Kobayashi and Toru, Fafnir and Takia, um Lukua and Shota. um and then, oh, and speaking of war, with Shota's whole bit, there's just like mages because why not? um and I really appreciate the way that the world building was actually given thought and effort, because it was something that didn't need to happen, and yet it really adds a lot to the show in the process. Um uh so I that's something that I love. And uh what I love even more are how great the characters are. Toru sort of struggle with like finding a place to belong is like a simple character arc, but one that I think is done very well. And in fact, that's sort of like the theme with this entire show's characters is like a lot of them feel sort of lost, but then they find a place to belong. And, you know, it's a very simple theme, but this show executes it very well. Um, Toru feels lost after not and feels constricted after not being able to find a place in the dragon world because she wants the fighting to stop. And so she finds that by living with Kobayashi. And then Kana, who is probably my favorite character just because of the fact that Kana's got to be one of the cutest anime characters of all time. Um uh like she just shows up and she's able to act like a little kid in an environment where she wasn't really given the reign to do so. Elma is like Maid, it feels the obligations of her duties, and in the end, that's why she's a very hard worker. And in the human world, she can just kind of chill out and eat limited time sweets whenever she gets there in time to eat them, and assuming that she doesn't have to work overtime. Um, and then Fafnir and Takia, they're just like your classic otaku group, which is funny. Um, and then probably the funniest dynamic is Shota and Lukua because of just how ridiculous the some of the antics get. And speaking of antics, that's something else that I want to touch on because a long time before I watched this show, I'd heard quite a few things about uh this show has some like questionable scenes, or it's very hard to describe what I'm talking about, but like just due to the fact of the way that the word questionable tends to be used nowadays. But um this show has some scenes with like naked characters. There's a lot of like, I guess, quote unquote fan service with the boobs, but like Um, this could be a whole other video on its own, but the kind of like sort of limited thing that's used for comedic purposes in shows like this and Konosuba, it doesn't really bother me as much. Probably not as much as it used to. And I that's another thing I have to commend the show for is because I feel like it's a good balance of being able to use these aspects for comedic purposes, but also not make it feel overwhelming necessarily. Um, Also, the animation is way too good for this show, but that's every single Kyoto animation show because they are just the goat. Um, yeah, I mean, talked about them. Slice of life shows are really easy to talk about because, they're just a slice of life. And there's something that can be wonderfully comforting about that. Even when real life can really suck sometimes. And I think that this show was, another great example of that, but it was just a fun twist with cool dragon lore. And so, yeah, overall, I love this show like I love all slice of life shows pretty much. And I think that about does it. Yeah. Let me know your opinions on Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid if you have watched the show in the comments. And for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.